Am I live now?
Yep.
That was the problem? I can't take these out of my control problems. It was a stream key thing again? Come on, YouTube. Yeah. Subscribe. I'm not subscribing.
Tonight's debate
Okay.
is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates.
What?
It is conducted under
Dude,
health
what
and
is
safety
going on here?
protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump.
I'm late. It wasn't my fault. This is light.
And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage
Everything sound good?
Coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And
Cherry
we're fighting
picking
it, and we're fighting
statistics.
it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike
I believe
in
that there was a
Arizona.
number
It's
that just
now
came out
gone.
today.
And
1,200
there are some
dead.
spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be
Today.
gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is
Operation
the
Warp
military
Speed,
is going to
which is
distribute the
ridiculous.
vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got
Nobody
better very
says it's
fast,
a
or I
cure.
wouldn't be here tonight.
Did it get
And
quiet?
now they say I'm immune.
Or is
Whether
it
it's
just
4
me?
months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated
20%
by
of the
heads many
deaths,
countries on what
or
we've been
20% of the
able to do.
cases. How much was the
With
statistic?
if you take a look at
This is
what
not
we've
a
done in
worldwide
terms
problem
of
like we're doing it here.
goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Turning the corner,
Former
rounding
Vice
the
President Biden,
curve.
to you,
Pick
how
one.
would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. You hear nothing else I say tonight. Hear this.
It's
Anyone who's
already hard for
responsible
Trump to
not
be
taking
quiet.
control,
Oh my God.
In fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing.
We need a mask mandate.
Testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you and your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it
So
has
then
a
why
good
did you
chance
say
for
it?
companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well.
Oh, yeah,
Moderna
that's
is
a
doing
great
very well.
company.
Pfizer is doing very well, and
Gave
we have
fucking
numerous others.
Guatemalan
Then
syphilis.
we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting
Than
on
the
the
experts.
military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics. And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine. And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you
I don't
have no
think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've
Was that
learned and
gibberish?
studied and understand the disease,
But
which we didn't at
the
the
dark
beginning.
winter
When I
at all?
closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe. But China was
Ultimately,
in
a month
January.
later,
He was
Europe.
saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, "Oh, I should have, moved quicker." But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total
Don't
disaster.
bring
far
that
less
up because
lethal,
they handled
but
the
it
fuck
was a
out
total
of that.
disaster.
Idiot.
Had that had this kind
What
of
kind of Republican
numbers,
strategist do you have?
700,000 people would be dead right now. But it was
No.
a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way
No, you
behind
haven't.
us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done
Good
that.
answer.
In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine
And he
what
blocked them.
exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump,
This
your
is the
reaction?
longest I've
Soon,
heard
I
Trump
say we're
quiet
learning
my
to live
entire
with it.
life.
We have
It's
no
really
choice.
weird.
We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself.
Bunker boy!
He's obviously
Talking
made a lot
about
of
somebody
money
else being
someplace,
locked up in a
but
basement.
he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that.
Bunker
By the way,
boy!
President
Who talks
couldn't
about
do
somebody
that.
else
I'd
living in
love
a
to put
basement and then
myself
gets
in a
outside of the
basement, go in
bunker to go
beautiful
spray a
room in
bunch
the
of
White
peaceful
House
protesters and
and
hold
go
a
away
Bible
for a
really
year and a half
fucking
until
weird
it
like this.
disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten,
Pathetic.
every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them.
What's a
I had
Gold
to.
Star
It would
family?
be horrible to have canceled everything.
Am I a
said,
Silver Star family?
This is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals.
Is that why you changed
And now I recovered.
0% of your rhetoric? You learned a lot, though?
Of young people recovered.
Typically when somebody learns something, they say
99% of
something
people
new.
recover.
You've said the
We
same
have to
thing since the
recover.
beginning of the
We can't
virus.
close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation.
We need to
or
open
you're
our
not going
schools
to have a nation.
safely if we're
And
going
of
to
course,
open
the
them at all
CDC
during a
has said young
pandemic.
people can get
Jesus.
sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You have
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have
Yeah.
an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he has never said, he said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I
quickly.
take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
Fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry, the warm weather.
And before
Don't worry,
Easter,
maybe inject
he
bleach.
also
He
said that it
kidding when he
wasn't
said
going to
that.
do
A lot of
anything and it
people
wasn't
thought
even a big
serious.
deal, even though
A whole
privately
range of
we know
things the
because of the
president
Bob
said.
Woodward text, he
Even
knew
today,
exactly what he was dealing
He
with.
thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing, you're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it
xenophobic
to
is
China.
racist,
Now he
so,
says
yeah,
I
he
should have
did.
closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say
did.
sugar
You
coercion,
certainly
and
did.
I talked about a xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to
He
handling
thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
That's
Is that, do you want
obvious.
to respond to that quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
Nothing
What I would
outweighs
say
the risk
is
of
I'm going to shut
exposure.
down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have
Because
gone
we didn't
under,
have
why
a
schools are
plan when
closed,
we
why
opened
so many
back
people
up.
have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in a golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the name, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if
Come on,
you
get it
have a
together, Joe.
reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up, more social distancing, do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums, do not open until you get this under control. under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes.
And Trump was threatening
more
to take
teachers,
their
more
funding.
pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least
Yep.
up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President
Well,
Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All
Are
he
they
talks
dying of
about is
COVID?
shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive.
That you don't give a fuck
By
about.
the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded
Still,
schools
with the
open in
COVID
person and insist they can do
disinformation,
it safely.
this
But
late
just
into the
yesterday,
game, the
Boston
young people,
became
they have an
the
immune
latest city
system.
to
They
move its
can't get
public
the
school
virus.
system
You're
entirely
killing
online
people.
After a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is
We got a Cuomo
very
fan in
small,
the chat.
But I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country
Shut
with a
down,
massive
Cuomo.
economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself.
Vice
And that's
President.
what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden,
Absolutely.
your
Simply not
disgraceful.
true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but would they need resources to open? You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we can open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
Some more, you little
President
bit.
Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I
on-
will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about
It
plexiglass,
was a
these are
ghost town
restaurants that are
until they all
dying.
decided to
These are
wear
businesses with
masks,
no money.
and now there's not as
Putting
many
up
ghosts
plexiglass is
from your
unbelievably
virus you won't
expensive.
fucking
And
handle.
it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with
It's a socially
plastic.
distant town
It's-
that wears
these are
masks, and
businesses
guess
that
what?
are dying,
Their death
Joe. You
rate
can't do
has
that
hit
to
the
people.
floor. Nobody's
You just gotta
dying there
Take
anymore.
a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look
Vice
at what
President
New
Biden.
York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying.
There
And
you
I
go.
don't look at this in
That's what I was
terms of
just
the way he
getting into.
does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that
Good
are having
job.
such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all
Because they're
Americans.
listening
They're
to
all
this
Americans.
dipshit
And
up
what
here.
we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need. That
He's
has money's
dangerous.
already been passed. to
Vote
do
him
that.
out.
It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
Also,
President
consider
New York has
subscribing
lost more
to
than
this great channel.
40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you
about-
say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina.
Her life
They're
was
having
just
spikes,
threatened,
and they've
and
been
you're still
closed,
spending
and they're
your
getting
political
killed
capital
financially.
threatening
We can't
to
let
kill
that
her
happen,
more.
Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the
Keep
disease.
her
We have to
fucking
protect our
name
seniors.
out
We have
of
to
your
protect
mouth.
our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems, and we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow
That
up
is
with you
not
before
why we
move
have so
on
many
to our next
cases.
section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is
I
not
get along
going to
very
be a
good with
problem.
Anthony. He's a
We are
nice
not gonna have a
guy.
problem
He's
at
been here
all.
for
When
500
Joe says
years.
that,
He's a
I
disaster.
said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a
knew
lot.
what it was
But Anthony
in
said, don't wear
February.
masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said,
Bob
if you look back,
Woodward.
exact words. Here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than
Thank you for bringing up the
flu.
Woodward tapes.
He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us.
Joe,
He
slap
didn't
some
want to
water
tell
on
us
your
because he
face.
didn't want
Let's
us to
fucking get
panic.
going here.
He
You
didn't
got a
want us-
country to
Americans
win.
Don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to
one
give you
this
30
is one I
seconds to
haven't-
respond, and then we're
The
going
Wall
to
Street
move
one,
on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I
Why,
don't take
why is he getting all temper
You
tantrum-y?
raised
Somebody
a lot of
get
money.
on Wall Street. I don't know. He's talking about
And
Wall
every
Street.
time you raise money,
Calm
deals
down,
make,
Trump. It's
I could
okay.
raise so much more money.
You'll get to
As
go back to the
president and as
bouncy ball
somebody that
pin
knows
after
most
this.
of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position.
You
And
don't
then
want to
bring up
win?
Wall
You
Street.
just
You
said, like,
shouldn't
I
be
could
bringing
win
up Wall
so
Street
big, but I don't want to
because
do
you're the
that.
one
I could
takes
blow
the
it all
money from
away,
Wall Street,
but I'm
not
not going to
me.
do that.
My
You're
I could
pathetic.
blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny
You're in
fraction of the
$400
money
million
that she was
of
in.
All right,
debt.
gentlemen, we're going
Don't
to move
tell me
on.
about Wall
Average
Street.
We're gonna-
contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just
FBI.
last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will
It's a
pay
thing
a
I'm saying
price.
when I get up,
It's
I'm
been
gonna go
overwhelmingly
fast at the same
clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's stalking them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens?
No,
Nothing
Joe
happens.
is slower
and then you
tonight.
find out that
And he
everything
did
that's
not
going
need
on
to be
here
at all.
about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country
Joe,
interferes
you're
with us
rambling almost.
will,
Like,
in fact,
what are you
pay
talking
a
about?
price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to
Respond
respond.
to
For two
what?
elections
He
in
rambled.
a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million.
I'm going to fact check this $3 million right now.
And, you know, someday you're going to have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that.
Keep that
and
alive.
through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, you know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine.
The claim
There has been
$3.5 million
nobody
went to Joe Biden from
than
Russia
than
is
Donald Trump.
unproven and lacks context.
I'll tell you, they were so bad. They
That's
took
right
over
now all I'm gonna get
the
into.
submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money.
Unproven.
And they probably still are. But now, with
Baseless
what came out
allegation.
today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
The only person who
Vice
deserves,
President Biden,
who
you may
needs to give an
respond.
explanation to the
And then I
American
do wanna
people
follow up
is
on the election
Mr. I'm
security.
actually
I have
corrupt
not
more than any
taken
president.
a penny from any foreign source ever in my life.
There you
we
go.
learned that this president
And Mr.
paid
220,000
50 times
American
the
people are
tax
dead.
in
That's who
China,
needs an
has a
explanation.
secret bank account with China.
Secret bank
does
account.
business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country.
Paid
whatsoever,
$750 to
ever.
Americans
Number one.
in taxes,
Number
Trump
two,
did.
This is a
Paid
president
over
I've
$100,000
released
in
all of my
taxes
tax
to
returns.
China. Look that up.
22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying
I
you
got
a
it.
lot. Russia's paying you
I
a
love
lot.
it.
China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas.
Oh.
So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return?
Kind of like his
Stop
golf
talking about
courses in
corruption.
President
Saudi
Trump, your
Arabia.
First of all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can.
You're never
I'm
going to
do
release it.
and it'll show
You
how
will die
fast my
before they're
breakers-
released. You're a liar.
But much more importantly than that, people were saying
Joe,
$750.
Joe.
A week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell you
told
when
you
you
that.
released
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars
It's an
in
income tax
taxes.
for you.
Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia.
I know you
You made
what am
$3.5
I?
million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10%.
What the fuck is happening?
Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen,
You're
I
the
want to
big man,
ask you
Joe.
both some
I think
questions
maybe
about
not.
all of
I don't
this.
know.
I'm going to let you both respond
What was
very
that?
quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have a
soon as the audit is
deadline for
finished.
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
This audit
worse
shit
than the
has
Tea
been
Party got
happening since
treated.
the Hillary debate
There's a lot
then.
of people in there.
What kind of
deep
4-year
down in
audit
the
is this
IRS,
orange
they treat me
motherfucker
horribly.
under?
We made a deal. It was all settled.
I'll be
until
right
I
back.
decide to run
Keep the
for
people
president.
entertained, cutie.
I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us.
Exactly, since the
Just
Hillary
show
debate.
us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on.
Because I'm corrupt.
Very quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you. Sure.
And then all his
was put
empty-headed
through a
people were
phony
like,
witch
yeah, that's pretty cool, it's smart,
3 years.
could never do anything you're
It
supposed to do
started
under the law.
Before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong.
No
48
collusion.
million. I
Not
guarantee
no
if I
election
spent
interference.
1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong.
That's the key.
Because
All
the
right.
kind of things
Mueller
that
made
you've
that
done and
very
the kind
fucking
of monies
clear.
that your family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq. Millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune.
Your
and
other
it's
brother.
all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it. And you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this.
You
broadly.
jealous
Vice
that he
President
might
Biden, there
actually
have been
somehow
questions
have
about
more
the
money
work
than
your
you,
son has
Mr.
done in
Billionaire,
China and
supposedly?
for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or
Of course he's lying. He doesn't know how to do anything but lie.
The deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing.
You need to learn some new faces,
Number
Trump.
two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do.
What the
and
fuck
did
is
not
that?
Do because it
No wonder
never,
people use the
ever,
Pepe
ever
frog
happened.
for you. You look
My
like a
son
mongoloid.
has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President
He also
Do
paid a
it.
lot of
Let me
taxes
ask
to
my
China, but
question
not
to
here.
you,
But
and
could
then
I just
you'll-
one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't
What
have a
the
job. As soon
fuck?
as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this.
Did he just take a shot
$183,000,
at
and they
dead
gave him
Beau
a $3 million
Biden?
upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm
Am
gonna
I
let the Vice President
mishearing-
talk
am I
very
mishearing
quickly, and then I
that?
need to get to a question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis
Vice
for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman.
This one fucking wasn't!
You're referring to, which
This
is
was a
everybody knows
secret
about,
Chinese
is listed.
bank account!
The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Fact checking
And
to see if
then,
this is
unlike
closed.
him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the
By the way,
vice
even if it
president of
is
the
closed,
United
that doesn't
States,
change
and
the-
his son, his
the
brother,
China connection
and his
here.
other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking
Okay,
up money
President
every
Trump,
place
thank
he
you.
goes.
We do
Not
need to
true.
move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the
I
international
can't find that
rules,
yet. It's too
not
live.
like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up,
Yeah.
not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to
B-52,
play
BB-1
by the
bomb.
rules. And what's he do?
Damn
He
it,
embraces
Joe. Come
guys
on,
like
Joe.
the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're
Yeah,
with
you're right. He is.
25%.
Joe needs to make
25%
Trump go
of
on the
world's
defensive.
economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it. And that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to
Yes.
respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then
His
we're
son
going to move
walked
on
out
to
with
North
$1.5
Korea.
billion from China to
Not
manage after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in
Nope.
Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy,
true.
though, what
No, but
specifically
wait-
are you going to do? What
What
specifically
even
are you
was
going
that
to do
response?
to make China pay? You
There's a
said
very
you're
First of all,
strong
China is paying. They're
email
paying billions
talking
and
about
billions of
China
dollars.
and
I
you
just gave
wanting to
$28
make
billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion
Introductions.
to our farmers.
Taxpayers'
China-
money.
It's what?
Taxpayers'
It's what?
money. Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is? It's called China. China paid
true.
It's
$28
called
billion,
China,
and you know
and
what
I
they
paid
did to pay it,
100,000
Joe?
taxes
They
to them.
devalued their currency, and they
$100,000
also
in
paid
taxes.
up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted.
Oh, you care about
never
people so
charged them
much.
anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel
Okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
Our response is, look,
We didn't have a
this
steel
isn't about-
industry.
there's a reason
Carnegie
why
never
he's
happened until Trump
bringing up
got
all
here.
this malarkey. There's a reason
Malarkey!
about these
Joe,
the
Joe,
substance
Joe!
issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont. They're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
1
to turn
second,
to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a typical
seconds.
political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got elected.
You're the
Now,
president.
Let's get off the
You're the
subject of
ultimate
China. Let's talk
politician
around
at this
sitting
point. And
around
by the
the
way,
table.
All right.
Come on,
you've
Joe,
supported
We're going to talk
nothing
about
but
North Korea.
establishment
President Trump, you've met
Republicans
with North Korean
your
leader
entire
Kim Jong-un
presidential
3
career.
times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House. right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said,
This is
"No,
the
there's
only
not,
thing that Trump
because he's
gets
not
any
gonna do
credit
that."
on pretty
And
much
I
from
was
me.
right.
Like,
Look,
I'm glad
instead
there's
of
no
being in a
war for
war
North
where
Korea.
millions of people
But I don't
sold,
necessarily
it's
give full
25
credence
miles
to that
away.
to Trump.
Millions
Though
and
I do
millions,
give
32
zero
million
credence to
people
people
sold.
like John
Millions of
Bolton
people
and
would be
other
dead
warhawks
right now.
that
President
wanted
Trump,
a,
that's
and
not
Lindsey
exactly the
Graham
relationship.
Vice
that wanted
President
a
Biden,
war
to you,
with
North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat?
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said,
Joe.
why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get that the Korean Peninsula should be a nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American
I
families.
think the whole
They tried
world
to meet
Quickly,
with
10
him.
seconds,
should be a
They tried to
nuclear-free
meet with
zone,
him.
by the way.
He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't
Including
like
us.
Him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
gotta
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on, 'cause
countries
we
is a good thing.
We have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
That's
Your
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe.
That's
Rest
true.
of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And
let's
it didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk
He
about
left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump, okay, we do
They
need to
left
move on.
me a mess.
He left you the
North
biggest
Korea was
gift
a
of all
mess.
time,
We
and
need
you
to
still
move on
fucked
so
it
that we
up.
the
can
first
get to all
2 or
of our
3
other
months?
questions tonight.
He
It was
left
a
you a
very
booming
dangerous
economy,
period of my
an
first 3
amazing
months before
unemployment
we
rate,
sort of worked
everything
things
you
out
could
a
ever
little bit.
want,
It
and you
was a very
still
They left
fucked
us
it up.
a mess, and Obama would be, I think, the first to
You
say it was the
still
single
messed it
biggest
up.
problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the
Jesus,
center of
great.
her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate,
The
we
glue
have to
that
pay
held
a
it
fortune
together.
for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well
Obamacare
as you
is no
can
good
to my people,
because it
great
didn't go
people.
far enough.
Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody
You went
very
the other
unhappy.
way, the way that it
ran
needed to go farther away from.
Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do
Right.
is
So let's
terminate
institute
it.
universal
We have
health
the
care, right?
individual
Oh, wait,
mandate
but that's not
done.
what you're going to do,
I
and
don't
you're
know that
fighting
it's going
that
to
every
work.
tooth
If we
and nail
don't
second
win,
that
we
you
will
have.
have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate
Will always
Obamacare,
protect
come
people
up with
with
a brand new,
pre-existing.
beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be
Except you're
tremendous
literally
pressure on them, and
getting
we
rid of
might
the
even
thing
have
that
the
does
House
that.
by that time, and I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These
No,
are people that
he
love
isn't.
health care. People that have been successful.
I wish he would, and I wish he would give everybody great health care, but that's not his fucking plan.
180 million people.
The guy whose plan that was
under
lost.
what he wants to do, which will basically
And
be
you
socialized
obviously, and
medicine.
all of
He
your
won't even
buddies
have a
can't come
choice.
up with any better new
They want to
arguments.
terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
You've done a horrible job on healthcare.
Okay,
Let me
Vice
respond.
President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
They planned for
What I'm
Bernie to
gonna
be up
do
here, by
is
the way, and they
pass
didn't know what to
Obamacare
do
with
when
a public
Biden
option.
won.
Become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen.
Better than
Secondly,
Trump.
we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies.
Sounds
Thirdly,
like it's
the
better
idea
than
that
Trump.
I want to eliminate private insurance. The reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't. Not one single person.
You
with
sure
private
do,
insurance
don't you?
would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None. Zero.
Not
You
if he
can't
gets
do
rid of
it in the
Obamacare.
ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19,
Chat
and
hasn't
20.
moved
The
in like
fact, I
forever.
still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to
During
have
a
pre-existing conditions. What are they
pandemic.
going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to
He
something
wants to take
that President
this
Trump
healthcare
said.
away
He's accusing you of
during
wanting
a
socialized
pandemic.
medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's
I
your
say
response
it's
to them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care.
So then
And
you're for
I am very
Medicare for
proud
all?
of my plan. It's gotten endorsed
No.
by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range
But
of
it
other
is
people
better
who in fact, are
than
concerned
Trump.
in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives.
Literally
This
a
is gonna
dead
give
whale
some
would be
people
at
an
this point, by the
opportunity-
way.
An opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was three
not
and three
anything
quarters. It
other
was
than a
just
senator
a little while ago,
for
right? Less than
47
4
and
years ago.
for
He didn't do anything. He didn't do
43
it.
years.
He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice
He
president.
can't create
I mean,
health care for the
she
entire country as a
is
senator.
more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine.
Who's more
just
liberal?
like you
Kamala?
want with fracking.
Is that who he
We're
said?
not going to have fracking.
Did you hear
We're
it?
going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets
No
a
one's more
nomination.
liberal than
We get
Bernie
very lucky
Sanders.
to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania.
More liberal.
And he says,
Whatever.
"Oh, we're going to have fracking."
I don't feel like going into
And you never
political
ask that
theory right
question.
now.
And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way-
But somebody should ask the question.
You can ask-
He goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking. there
we
will
do
be
have
no
a number of
petroleum.
we have a number of topics we're
No,
going
but
to get
that's a
to.
big- that's a big question.
We're going to get to
It's the
a
same
number of
thing with
topics.
socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. And what we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine. And when he and healthcare.
Subscribe
When he talks
to
about
the
a
light.
public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare. Totally
Wrong.
destroyed, and destroying your Social Security.
Nobody's destroying
and this
your
whole
Medicare.
country will
You're
come
insane.
down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His
Medicare
governor was
for
a very
all,
liberal governor. They want to make it work.
But Bernie's
Hey,
trying to
let's hear
destroy
what Vice
Medicare
President
by
Biden
making it
responds.
incredibly
Vice
more
President
powerful.
Biden
Very
response.
confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against
Exactly!
Biden. I beat
They
all those
prepared
other
for
people
Bernie.
because
They
I
didn't prepare for
disagreed with
Biden.
them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security, Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of.
seconds,
He
Mr.
tried to
President,
hurt
and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that when they
Mr.
announced
President, I have to
last
move
week,
on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
going to
will
have time
boom
to talk about it.
if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's
biggest
move on to the
analysts are
next
saying that.
question.
Let me respond.
Very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in
Exactly.
just in the last three
The worst
3 years
economic
during this
indicator
crisis,
for your average
so
American.
the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street,
Jesus, we gotta get a better
$700
headset.
billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars. Because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to
Kristen,
move on.
401ks are through the roof.
We're gonna move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All right.
And he
This
doesn't
is
come from
pathetic.
Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew it.
We're going to move on to
and
the
he
next
left.
question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty.
I've
and
created
more
more
families are going
jobs
hungry every
than
day.
anybody,
Those hit
with the
hardest are
possible
women and
exception
people
of
color.
Abraham Lincoln.
They see
Okay.
Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one
What?
of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House.
But you're the
because of
president.
her.
I do.
Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something.
Believe we're
Don't
here,
forget,
we're
we've
covering the
covered
debate.
3 plans, and it's gone through, including
It's
the
fun.
Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election
What?
because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
Ready,
Mr. Vice
willing, and
President,
The
Gable.
Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice
it.
President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer.
Yeah, the HEROES
This is
Act
like
was
it's
passed
not
like
new.
4 months ago.
It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there.
This
And look
HEROES
at what's
Act?
happening. When I was in
The
charge
Soros
of the
Act
with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement
you go.
officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not
Get him,
done
Joe!
a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going
Oh
to take
my
care of everything
God.
for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was
Oh my
really
God.
a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
I wish you could
If
challenge
I
him.
get elected, I'm not going to. I'm
There you
not
go.
as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue.
Yep.
Cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses
Yes.
and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum
I
wage.
do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to
Of
do
course
is we're going
this
to have
is
to
the right
bail them
time.
out too. We should be bailing them out now. Those small
The right
businesses.
time was
You got
12
more than
years
60 of them
ago.
going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in.
Damn
They
straight is right.
need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to
Nope.
move on to
Excuse me,
immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly.
want
He
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You
Every
said
state
very
is
We have to
different.
help. It's very important. We have to help
Yeah,
our
but they're
small
all
businesses.
part of the same
How are you
country
helping your
that
small
is experiencing
businesses
the
when
same
you're forcing
pandemic?
wages?
That's not
What's
different.
going to happen, and what's been proven to happen,
They
is
all
when
need
you do
support.
that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very
Not true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising the federal minimum
it.
wage to $15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to
What I
$15 an hour.
really
Is that
like,
still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
To an
like.
administration?
extent? What does
what I
that
like in
mean?
a second
To an
administration, but
extent?
Not to a level that's
And they
going to put all
raised
these
it to
businesses out of
$9,
business.
so it's
It
kind of
should
to
be
an
a state
extent
option.
it's been
Look,
risen to
everything in
$15.
different places, I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick
No
response,
one
Vice
should
President
work
Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job.
How would the
Maybe low
minimum
poverty.
wage being raised
People are
in the
making
entire
6, 7,
country
8 bucks an
to
hour.
$15
These first
ruin
responders
anywhere?
were
It would
all
make
clapped for
everybody's
as
wages
they
go
come
up.
down the street
You're
because they've
insane.
allowed
You don't
us
know how
to make it.
economics work, my
What's
friend.
happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about
It's all
immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
I can't believe that's coming up right
Children are
now.
brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here and
They're
they
brought
used
here
to
by
use them to get
coyotes?
into our country.
Is this
We
a
now
dog
have
whistle I'm
as
not
strong
aware
a
of?
border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers.
I
and
mean,
we
with
let
a
people in,
melting
but they
brain
have to
like
come in
this,
legally, and they
I
come
mean,
in
it-
through
But how will you
He could be
reunite
literal
these kids with
coyotes.
their
Let
families,
me just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain
Obama
newspaper.
built the
There was
cages.
a picture
Okay,
of these
but
horrible
Obama
cages,
didn't
and
do
they said,
any
"Look
of the
at
shit
these
that you've
cages.
done with ICE.
President
He didn't
Trump built them."
separate. He didn't
And then
have
it was
500
determined they were
fucking
built.
people not knowing where their
In
parents are.
2014,
That's not anything
that was
Obama
him.
did.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
Yes,
This
we're
is
working
completely
on it
out of
very-
context.
We're trying very
not
hard.
equivalent at
But
all.
A lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border
What is the shush?
to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. They real tough. We're really strong.
I have to
And guess
comment
what?
on it.
They cannot. It's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents, and it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to
did
that?
it. We
We
changed.
did not
They built the
separate the
cages.
vet- they-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down.
seconds,
We
and then
brought
I need to-
reporters.
Abolish
everything.
ICE.
They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of them
have gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration
Who
policy,
built the
Mr. Vice
cages?
President. The Obama
How about who
administration
put the
did
kids
fail
in
to
the
deliver
cages?
Immigration reform, which
That'd
had
be
been
what
a
you
key
did.
promise during the administration. It
I don't
also
give a fuck who
presided over
built the
record
gun, who
deportations
shot
as
somebody
well
with the
as
gun.
family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they've gone to a country they've never seen before.
Yeah.
I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you
Don't even
across
speak the language.
the Rio Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President,
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed without having
You've had
a
4 years to be a
specific-
competent
we got rid of
president.
Catch and release. We got rid of a lot of
Hasn't
horrible
happened
things
yet,
that
won't
they put
happen
in
then.
And that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President Biden,
Wrong.
your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United
called
States
due
of America
process.
that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response.
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws.
Oh my
Catch
God,
and release
the
is a
fucking
disaster.
irony.
A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person
Some,
would come in.
I assume, are good
we
people.
would take their name. We have to release them into our country, and then you say they come back. Less than 1%.
I don't know why all these people come as xenophobic. They're rapists.
and
The
Border
murderers,
Patrol out to
the
find
criminals,
them, we
the
would say,
gangs.
come back in 2 years, 3
And
years. We're going to give you
some
a
of the
court
little
case. You need
kids, I
Perry
assume,
Mason.
maybe
We're going to give you a
the
court
innocent
case.
kids are good people.
When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe.
Yeah.
They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But they're
President
very,
Trump, let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to
What
move
the
on
fuck
to the
was
next
that?
section.
Law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law. What he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about it
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's talk about our
Jesus.
next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and
Yes, it
income.
does.
Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker. And,
George Floyd.
She's written a lot about this. She has her graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child, when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street, making sure that you,
Because
in fact,
somebody who's
if
not
you
even a cop
get pulled
might
over,
stalk and kill
yes,
you.
Yes, sir. No, sir.
Trayvon
Hands
Martin.
on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person, or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America, and we have always said. We've never lived up to it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. But guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it. But we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did
Oh
a
my
thing
God, that's
except
not
in
an answer to the fucking
1994,
question, you
when he
evil
did
orange
such
piece of
harm
shit.
to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it, super
So no,
predators.
the answer is that he doesn't know. He doesn't know why they have to do it. He's a liar and he's evil.
The super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community.
Except for
than
the
Donald
possibility
Trump.
of Abraham Lincoln.
And if you look, with the exception
God,
of
you're
Abraham Lincoln,
ridiculous.
possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal
He couldn't even
justice
say it right
reform.
this time.
Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina.
The only
He
black
came in with this
Republican.
incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it.
Elected
Tremendous
Republican.
investment is being
But
made.
still
Biggest
kinda true.
beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved colleges and
What was
universities.
that?
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your
that happen to
records,
you?
but your response to that,
Weird.
Vice
My
President.
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
So are you coming out for
Why didn't he do it
decriminalization
4
of all
years ago?
drugs?
Why didn't you do that?
I agree
4
if you
years
are,
ago,
but I
even
haven't
less
heard
than
you
that.
talk
Why
about that
didn't
yet.
I am
you were
not-
vice president.
Oh,
You keep
shut up
talking
with the
about all the
47
things you're
years
gonna do,
thing.
and you're
That's
gonna
the
do.
most
But you were
misrepresentative
there
thing
just
of
a
all
short
time.
time ago.
That's not an argument.
You guys did nothing.
You did
You know,
nothing.
Joe,
Has
I
been your
ran
entire
because of you.
presidency.
I ran because of Barack
You did nothing
Obama.
except give
Because you did a
billions
poor
more dollars
job.
to the
If I
rich.
thought you did a good job, I would
Pull out of the Paris Climate
I would
Accords.
have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of
You
you.
are a
All right, Vice
politician
President
as
Biden, your
well,
response to that, and then I do
dipshit.
have
You're
some
called
questions
called
for
kind
both
of
of
a
you.
I don't
Tell you
know,
what,
the president.
I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up.
Excuse me.
Please respond,
If
and then we're
this
going to have
stuff
follow-up
is
questions.
true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq.
You have an
if this is
accordion, you
true,
fucking
then he's a corrupt
spaz?
politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody-
Take a look
President
at the
Trump,
Did I
I
hear
want to
Sim?
stay on the issue of race. We're
Take a look
talking
at
about the issue.
laptop from hell.
President Trump,
Listen,
we're
Trump,
talking
you're
about race
Sim.
right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have to
just
respond to that.
Please,
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now the Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
got
exactly
Russia, Russia,
Is
Ru-
this
That's
where you're
He
exactly
can't say
going?
Russia
This is
anymore
where
without
you're
saying
going.
it 3
The
times like
laptop
fucking
is
Beetlejuice.
Russia.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue
Russia.
of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a
The
symbol of
laptop
hate.
has been widely
You've shared a
debunked
video
by
of a man
literally everyone
chanting
who's
white
actually
power
looked
to
into it.
millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them.
Sounds pretty
like
based.
bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought
Yeah,
it was
well,
a terrible
listen, buddy,
thing.
if you grew up as a
As
poor
far
black
as,
kid, which you could never
my
fucking understand,
relationships
and
with
everybody you knew
all
got
people,
shot by
I
a
think I have
fucking
great
pig,
relationships with
maybe
all
you'd
people.
call him a
I
fucking
am the
pig,
least
too.
racist person in this room.
What
You
do
are
do
the
when
most
you're concerned
racist
about
president
that?
openly
Identify
that we've
why.
ever
To
had.
say I got criminal justice reform done and prison
At least
reform and
documented.
opportunity zones. I
It's not
took
much
care of
better.
black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even
Fuck
see
you.
the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
There's too many
Okay,
darkies in
Vice
here to
President
tell,
Biden,
but
let me ask you
I'm the
very
least
quickly, and then I have a
racist
follow-up
person in the
question for you.
room.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist
Why did he
fire.
call him
Every single
Abraham
one.
Lincoln?
Started off his campaign coming
Is
down
that
the
on
escalator
purpose?
saying he's gonna
Oh,
end
yeah, it
those
was. Okay, never mind. I get it.
Mexican rapist.
It was
He
just funny. It
banned
caught me off
Muslims
guard.
because they're Muslims.
Get him,
Went
Joe!
around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready.
Stand
Come on.
back and stand
This guy has
by.
a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
Abraham Lincoln
Made
here
a
is the
reference
most
to
racist.
Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did
Why
that-
do you
No,
keep
where-
bringing it up for a year?
No,
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for
The
the black
poor
community.
boys.
And I'm
I
saying-
didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since.
You're
Abraham
drawing an
Lincoln
obvious
has
connection
anybody
to him,
done
you
what I've done
obtuse
for the black
orange piece of
community.
shit.
Now you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly in jail.
All right, let me-
And you know
let me
what?
a- let me
they
ask
remember
Vice
it because
President
if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening.
Yeah,
out
so the
there.
Vice
crime bill
President
happened to
Biden,
put
let me give you a
tens
chance
of
to
thousands of
respond
black men
within
in
this
jail.
context.
But people like you and
Crime
people
bills
you
that supported
support
in the 80s
blame
and
all the
90s
fucking black
contributed
problems
to
on the fact that they don't have
incarceration of
fathers.
tens of
So
thousands
the
of
government
young
passes a
black
policy
men
that gets
who
rid
had
of all the
small amounts
fathers,
of drugs
and
in their
Republicans like you
possession.
and your
Their
buddies
sons,
pretend that
their
it's a black
brothers, their
person problem.
fathers, their
So
uncles,
fuck
their
you!
families
You don't
are
get to
still
talk
to this
about
day,
it!
Some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things
I
is
wonder.
that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change this since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drugs. But they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your
you
president.
become
your
president?
leader,
He's
for 8
really
years.
pretending like he
Why
hasn't
didn't
been
you
the
get it
president
done?
for the past
You had
4
8
years.
years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because
He's
you're
still
all
trying to
talk
pretend
and
like
no
he's the
action.
We got
outsider
a
who's
lot
never
of it
held
done.
public
we released
office.
38,000 we
anything
got
done.
38,000 prisoners left in the
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners
got
were released
nothing,
from
Joe.
federal prison.
You got
There
nothing.
were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on to
one
climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why
How many
didn't you
years
do
is
You
it?
just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of
Because-
thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Oh,
Biden,
give
and
me
then
a
we're going to
break.
move on to the next section.
You are all talk
Republican
personified, Mr. Trump.
That's the answer.
Well,
Okay.
you got to talk them into it, Joe.
All
Sometimes
right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section.
Like I
which
did
is
Did I miss
climate
something?
justice reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running
already
out of
done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change.
No.
President
One
Trump,
person
you
has
say
a
that
vision and
environmental
one doesn't.
regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you,
One
how would you both combat
says it's
climate
a
change
Chinese
and
hoax,
support
and
job
has a
growth
legion
at
of
the same time?
dipshits
Starting with you, President Trump,
that say it's
you
a
have 2
hoax
minutes
as well.
uninterrupted.
So we have
One
the
doesn't-
Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the
got
environment,
tree
but what I want is the
programs,
cleanest,
so many
crystal clear water,
programs.
the cleanest air. We have
The
the best,
clean
lowest
coal.
number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've
Disgraceful.
had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so
Is that why
well
you
with
cut all the
industry, but
carbon
here's what we
regulations
can't
and
do.
got out of the Paris
Look at
Climate
China,
Accord,
how
and our
filthy
emissions
it
have
is.
skyrocketed
Look
since
at
you've been
Russia.
president? Is that what
Look
good
at
numbers
India.
mean?
It's
That we're pumping
filthy.
more black
The
poison into the
air
fucking
is
air every
filthy.
day?
The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will
Oh my
not
God, the
sacrifice
hyperbole.
tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We
No.
have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, the global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time.
We don't have any
We're going to
time.
pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit of emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
Somebody who has a
Today
vision
came
for
out
climate
and
change.
said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from
Subscribe
families under
to
his
Light
plan. That his
below.
plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his
nothing to do with
environmental
climate.
plan, you know who developed it? AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the
What the
climate.
fuck was that?
And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC plus 3. Look, their real plan
Somebody
costs
obviously thought that was a
$100
good
trillion.
line. What a bunch of
If we had
fucking
the best year
dorks.
in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they wanna
AOC
take
plus 3,
buildings
by the
down
way,
because they
had
wanna make
over
bigger
4
windows
times
into
these many
smaller
viewers
windows.
last night on her
As
playing
far
a
as they're
video
concerned,
game.
if you had no window, it
So
would be a
you might want to
lovely
keep her
thing.
name out of your mouth,
This
too.
is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I
You wouldn't
don't
know
even
a
how it
smart
could be
person
good.
if somebody
Frankly,
whacked
they
you
wanna
in the
spend
fucking empty head with one.
$100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice
Windows.
President respond, and we're running out of
Little
time, and we have a
tiny
lot more
delicate
questions to
Destroy
get
our
to.
country.
So
Biden
let's
doesn't
hear
want
from the
any
Vice
windows.
President. I have a number
What?
more.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Nobody does, Biden.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan was this is plan
headphones
endorsed
give
by
me a
every
break.
major environmental group and every labor group. Labor, because they know
speaking
the
just right, or I
future
can't even hear
lies.
it.
The future lies in us being able to breathe,
it doesn't wanna
and they
say
know
that.
they're good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the electric, solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50
Look at his
bucks an
dumbass
hour.
face.
We can grow and we can
You're
be
the one that
cleaner
said it,
if we
Orange
go
Reach.
the route I propose.
Orange
President
dipshit.
Trump,
Excuse me.
please
We are
respond, and then I have some
We are
follow-ups.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's
I know.
extremely expensive. Kills all the birds.
I know so much
It's
more
very
about wind
intermittent.
than you
It's got
do,
a lot
Joe
of problems,
Biden.
and they
I had a
happen to
lot of
make the
wind on the way
windmills
to
in
the
both
debate
Germany
here,
and
Joe.
China, and
I
the
think I
fumes
know
coming
about
up,
it.
if you're a believer in carbon emission,
I know a
the
lot about being
fumes
full of
coming
hot
up to
air, Joe.
make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
that said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need
Our
to
big,
compete
beautiful
with the
women.
world.
I mean,
So
factories.
False.
it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do?
He says
We're gonna have the
BB
greatest
something
economy in
else
the
every
world,
other
but if
day.
you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
All right,
Now
let me
we have to ask
let me
about
allow
fracking.
Vice President Biden to
I have
respond.
never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is
Showed
he's
it last-
flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then
Excuse me,
we have.
he was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know
that's
what,
how you talk,
Pennsylvania,
and that's
he'll
not
be
how he
against it very
talks. So you're
soon
probably not going
because
to be able to
his
find that
party
clip.
is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking
You said
and or
fracking.
oil
You
on
didn't say
federal
fracking.
Let
land.
me ask this
I
final
did.
question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look
It's
at
always
the
the
kind
best.
of numbers
It's always
that we
more than
produce for
ever.
Hispanic or black.
How
or
does nobody
Asian,
catch on to that
it's
grift?
9 times greater the percentage gain than it was under in 3 years than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely.
Put it
9
nicely. You
times
just don't even
more.
know what to say.
Now,
You're stumbling all over the place.
Somebody lives. I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making
couldn't even remember
a
their
tremendous
fucking
amount of
names.
money. economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months
They
ago
saved
when oil was
GM.
crashing because
What
of
giant
the
company
pandemic.
have you
We
saved?
it.
Except,
we got, say what you want
looks like
about
you outsourced
relationship.
300,000
We got
jobs
Saudi
from
Arabia,
companies.
Mexico and Russia to cut back way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All
And
right.
everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were
Trump is
dying
spazzing all
and
over
getting
the place
cancer.
tonight.
The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters
I've got
how
something
you
to
keep
say
them
to you,
safe.
okay?
What do you do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil
By the way,
industry?
I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Transition,
Oh, that's a big
obviously.
statement.
It is a big statement
That's a big
because
statement.
I would
Yes,
stop
because the
fossil
planet is
The
dying!
oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. Over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, excuse me, to solar
What?
and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do
All
give
right.
it to solar and wind.
We
and
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
No,
statement
you
in
do
terms
not.
of
You
business.
cut all
That's
of
the
their
biggest
funding,
statement.
you
We have
fucking
one
liar.
final
What he's saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you
Oh, I'm
remember
sorry,
that
Noah.
Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds. to
Oklahoma doesn't give a
respond, and I
fuck
have to get
about
to the
you,
final
orange
question.
retard.
Vice President Biden.
Takes
I let it.
everything
I
out
don't
of
care
context,
anymore.
But the point is, look,
Ban
we
me.
have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he
final
gonna get
question
China to
both
do
of
it?
you. No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No.
have
Are
to
you
move
gonna
on
get
to
rid
our
of your
final
Chinese
question.
bank account?
To make China
Are you going to
buy
keep paying
what
hundreds
they
of thousands
agreed
of
to.
dollars
This
to
is
China?
about leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, etc. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT
Diplomas?
graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know
Okay,
what? The
yeah.
other side wanted to get together. They wanted to
You don't
unify.
get to do that,
Success
buddy,
is
because
going
the
to bring
pandemic
us
did
together.
happen, and
we
you
are on the
dropped
road to
the
success. But I'm
fucking
cutting taxes,
ball
and he
like
wants to
no
raise
one
everybody's
else.
taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it.
Read my
if he
lips.
gets in,
No
you will
new
have a
taxes.
depression the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day
No,
for
the
this
country will
All
go to
right.
hell if you
Vice
get
President
4 more
Biden,
years.
Same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you.
Thank
whether
you for
voted
answering the
for me or
question.
against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is
blue
the character
boys.
of this country. Decency,
Blue.
honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right, I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching.
That was a little bit less of a dumpster fire. We can take these out now. So that was a little bit less of a dumpster fire. I would say that that went a lot better than it went last time. Just because of the threat of the constant mute button on Trump, he actually, for once in his entire life, actually engaged in a real debate. I've never seen that happen before. It was kind of weird. Overall thoughts, it didn't go too great for Biden, honestly. I don't think it went too great for Biden. I think Trump did way better than he did last time. Obviously, like, I'm taking off my personal beliefs. I think that personally Trump made a whole bunch of abhorrent and incorrect statements, but I'm speaking through the eyes of your average American. I don't think that Trump did anywhere near as bad as he did last time. But here's the thing. He didn't knock it out of the park either. And that's about all he could have done to have really hoped to change anything meaningfully. He would have needed a home fucking... Did you feel like he knocked it out of the park at any moment?
No.
I mean, like, there was no standout, like, whoa, shit! Trump held his feet to the fire there. That never really happened. Like, so, and Biden fought back plenty. Honestly, I don't think this will move the needle at all. And considering what we know of the polls, the needle needed to move a lot towards Trump for him to have any chance here. And I don't think that happened whatsoever. I don't even think that got close to happening. So, in conclusion, this was a somewhat boring debate. Not a whole lot happened here. I really don't think that many people's minds are going to be changed by this debate. Not a stellar performance from either side. Stop hitting on my girlfriend, Charity Case.
No.
Go hit on Cuomo, you fucking weirdo. No, but I really don't think that. I would be bewildered if this made like some giant impact. I'm curious to see what other people think moving forward here, but I don't know. Do you guys think it moved anything? I didn't really see very much. I just saw Trump doing his normal "I'm gonna lie a bunch" and all that, but like really nothing spectacular happened here tonight. It was so fun though that we were here. This is my first debate ever that I got to cover right here on Light, baby. Get that light up there. Right here, coming at you. We're going to be streaming the whole election somehow. Kill me now. That's going to be forever. But, yeah, this was a lot of fun. There was a little bit of a disaster behind the scenes. I couldn't get here right on time, but I showed up, damn it. I tried. We're in our beautiful, elegant attire. Like, show off. Yes, of course. Look at that beautiful golden dress. And my beautiful double-breasted coat here. Oh, indeed. No, but I really don't think that this did a whole bunch to change anything. I love you guys. Tune in tomorrow for more daily content. The light is coming. Say it.
The light is coming.
That's what I